They live what we call the transaction treadmill, where they're deal junkies and they're chasing and they're going and they can't, even if they close a deal, they ruin the relationship because they forget about people they built trust with. It's crazy to me how they do that.
Hello, and welcome to Mornings with Joel, commercial real estate podcast, where we focus on rising stars and established players in commercial real estate and talk to them about how they are building legacies in today's marketplace.
Before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by Gallatin River Lodge in Bozeman, Montana. Incredible hospitality, a beautiful riverside setting, and the perfect home base for Big Sky and Yellowstone.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you all to the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. We're very excited to have you with us here today as we start 2026, and this is actually our first show of the year. We have Rod Santomassimo. Did I say that right? I just butchered it, didn't I? Give me the proper pronunciation so I don't screw this up again.
Yeah, it's Rod and it's Santomassimo. Rod Santomassimo.
Oh, okay. So just almost break it in half, almost like hyphen.
Yep, break in half. Break in half.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So we'll stick to Rod for now so I don't beat that up anymore, but I appreciate that. But Ron, we're very, very excited to have you with us today. One reason that we invited you on is because you're an expert in working with real estate brokers in the commercial real estate space and helping them really succeed. And as you know, as we start any year, people want to know, well, what do I need to do this year that will make it better than last year, right? So we thought it would be very, very fitting to have you on as our first guest of the year in order to give some insights as to how to make that happen. And we also have a few people that watch the show that actually are in the residential space looking to move to commercial. And, they need to get off on the right foot as well, because you know very well that people could starve to death on the commercial real estate side if they don't know what they're doing. So, Rod, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and welcome to the show.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, Rod, as you know, you've got some background in the real estate industry. I know that you have, trainings and other things that you do, but give us a little bit of your background as it relates to commercial real estate and why our audience should be tuned in to listen to what you have to say.
I think first and foremost, probably like most of your audience, I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned several businesses. Some have failed, absolutely, which is great. You learn. Many have. This one, the particular one, is quite successful. If there's a reason why they should listen, how's this one? I've been running now Massimo for 17 years, Joel, and in 17 years, including 2025, including the pandemic, since we started in the Great Recession of 2008, we have never grossed less than the year before. Never in 17 years. Most importantly, I've never netted less than the year before. So I've grown consistently for 17 years. I think that's one reason to say, wait, what's he doing different?
Right. Well, that's a very good reason, because we've been through recessions, we've been through COVID, we've been through all kind of things. So yeah, everybody wants to know what that secret sauce is. So, that's a very good, powerful thing. Were you going to add to that, or was that?
Well, if you want me to answer it now, I can. You tell me.
Yeah. Go ahead. Give us a little bit of your background and, what you found to work so well. And then we'll kind of dive into some other things related to, what our audience needs to know.
Yeah, but look, I grew up in the commercial real estate world. I did. My father was an advisor, consultant for commercial landlords, and I learned how to read leases when I was believe it or not, before I was 13, I could read a lease. Not that I wanted to.
You're in this lease.
But I was told to. So,
Right.
And then the good fortune of going to college and grad school at Duke, get my MBA, and then I went off to do my own thing. I said, I'm not going to do commercial real estate. In fact, Joel, I remember going off to grad school and telling my father, I will never be in commercial real estate. I was like, I'm never going to do this. So,
How about that?
what I didn't realize, all the corporate jobs, I had all the corporate jobs, they were boring as hell and limiting to what you could do.
Mhm.
So eventually I was a COO of a telecom firm we took public. I was a CFO of a law firm, and finally an executive with a brokerage firm, a commercial brokerage firm, Sperry Van Ness, before entering the Great Recession, and then find myself laid off, as all the executives were. And then I said, you know what? I know how to run a business. I know the finance side. I know the business side. I know the marketing side, I think. So let's help people build businesses instead of build brokerages, which is a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the catalyst to why we've been able to grow our income every year. We focus on the business side of everything and every factor of the divisions of that business. So we have a better foundation to grow and scale.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, well that makes very good sense. What do you say is one of the fundamental things that people do wrong? Because it's funny you mention that, because even for myself, you see here, and I'm always looking at this in reverse, but I'm at the Gatlin River Lodge up in Bozeman, Montana. I'm not in my office, and one reason I'm here is because I'm here to work on my business as
Yeah.
opposed to in the business, right?
Yep.
And you got to take that time to do that. But what do you feel is one of the biggest things that people miss as it relates to that? Or is that what they do miss? They always just work, 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 and they're actually not getting things done.
No, Joel, you nailed it. And that's also a concept most of us learned from Michael Gerber and the E-Myth,
Mhm.
the on in
That's what I
business,
came
right?
from. Yeah.
That's where it came from. So, and I reread that book every year and learn something new every year. But most, specifically brokers, they live what we call the transaction treadmill, where they're deal junkies and they're chasing and they're going, and they can't, even if they close a deal, they ruin the relationship because they forget about people they built trust with. It's crazy to me how they do that. So you're right. The idea of just always pursuing, always chasing the next thing stops you from building something that's stronger that allows the next thing to come more easily to you. So that would be it.
I love the way you said that. That is beautiful. You stop the progression of the next thing coming to you, because you're right. If you take care of your clients, they will naturally come back. They will naturally refer. Ironically enough, I got a call from, I used to be a CEO of a mortgage bank that I ran for about 15, almost 20 years. And literally last week, I got a call from a client that we did a construction perm for many years ago, asking me to refinance his house. And I'm like, well, I don't do residential real estate anymore. But it's amazing that he would call after all these years, right? So your point is spot on, and it could save you a lot of marketing dollars too. You know,
Yeah, we have a concept at Massimo, my company, that there's no such thing. There's never anything considered because a past client, PAST client. Every client you ever had should be put in a bucket called inactive clients. They're my client,
I
just
like that.
not currently active.
Mhm.
Or as Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank would say, most people put them in the PASSED bucket, like they're dead to me. You're dead to me. And like I did my deal, I got my fee, I moved on. And you just left someone, now becomes someone else's prospect and client because you didn't think it was worthwhile to continue to endure and retain that relationship when you lost all that money and
Yeah,
that goodwill.
yeah. That's what you're really talking about, is the lifetime value of a client,
Yes,
and that
yes, the LTV.
yeah, exactly, and that's a big, big point, and I'm certainly appreciate you saying that. Let me look at and talk about one of the quotes that you made before. You had mentioned, and I want to make sure I get it right, that most people replace positioning and conversion with activity and busy work, and because of that, their businesses tend to plateau. Explain that to me, and I think I know what it means, but let you, as the professional, explain that. What did you mean when you made that statement?
Yeah, it actually relates to what we talked about in the first segment of the show, was the idea of living on that transaction treadmill and making excuses to be busy. And look, when everyone tells me their calendar's slammed, first thing I say is, "Let me see your calendar. Show me you're slammed, because you're not. You're not slammed, right?" We have a client we just actually spoke at yesterday. She's actually my first book, but she works two days a week, 2 days a week,
Mm.
and she's a mega producer. Right? So he's saying, how is that even possible? Because she only does the most important, critical things to move her business forward. Everything else is delegated to her team, everything else, or not deferred, but deleted. I don't need to do it. I think the idea of this being busy and refusing or giving yourself excuses not to do the more important stuff, maybe you're afraid to make prospect calls. Maybe that's why you're not making, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. Pick up the damn phone. The repetition will show you exactly what to say and exactly what to do. So I think, Joel, that's part of the element of busy work versus being productive.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. Very, very good point. It's amazing how the people with the greatest results do the least amount of, I don't want to say the least amount of work, but they're doing the important work in order to produce the results.
They're doing the high impact work.
Right.
That's what they're doing. Everything else, they delegate out.
Exactly, exactly. So let's talk about that a little bit. How did you get there? Let's say for an example, you have, you know, Billy Bob, and he's working his behind off day in and day out. He's slammed, as he told you, or there's a lot of people that could tell you that same thing. How do you go about transitioning from super busy, 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 busy into this other way of looking at things? And you mentioned your calendar, so I'm assuming that has something to do with it.
Yeah, but it's not just a calendar. So, for example, when I started this company 17 years ago, sure, Joel, for the first 3 years, it was me and my wife took care of the books, but I took care of everything else. And my wife took care of the books and the kids, most important assets. but, but I took care of the marketing, the sales, the operations. I was the janitor. So I was in that same mode. Everyone says they're busy. I get it, right? It wasn't until I said, wait a minute, I now got you know, a whole assembly of clients. I can't service them anymore like I want to. So let's delegate to another coach. Let's get an admin. Let's get a marketing person. Let's get some sales team. Before you know it, now we're 50 people in size because it's just you got to recognize that. So look, here's the thing. The most important thing I would say is what's your I know we don't live you shouldn't live by hourly worth because it's not an hourly thing, but you should understand your hourly worth. If I wanted to, let's say I want to make sure I'm making $10 million a year, that means I gotta be worth $5,000 an hour, right? That's what it means. If you make $1 million a year, you gotta be worth $500 an hour. That's simply what it means. A very simple simplification approach. So if that's the case, if you're worth $500 an hour, why the hell are you doing $15 an hour work? It's just asinine. It's crazy. You're losing money. In fact, you're losing $485 an hour given that math. So that's when you go to tools like Upwork. Upwork's an amazing platform. It is. I can find talent anywhere in the world that's as good or better than me, absolutely in something, and for a fraction of the cost. I can. Upwork, Guru, Odesk, all these virtual assistants. That's when you start realizing I have to focus on this, on my hourly rate, because it's this, and delegate and invest in myself and my time with other people. That's where you get to.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes very, very good sense. And I think a lot of people would just argue, well, I don't have time to hire, I don't have time to interview. If you don't do it though, you're just pushing yourself further back in the hole. You know.
And not just that, Joel. I'll ask you, okay, so what are you doing? What are you doing from 5 to 9 on evenings? What are you doing on Saturdays? What are you doing on Sundays? You have so much time in your life. You do, even if you have kids, even if you have children, you have so much time in your life to allocate and delegate other resources, and so everything else. Or you're binging on Netflix. Okay, maybe.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, since you deal with a lot of commercial real estate brokers, what do you think the majority of them are in denial with right now? Or what is the greatest skepticism that you think they have about changing the way they work?
Well, Joel, what do you think is the number one reason people become real estate brokers? The number one reason.
Well, I would think I think twofold. It's either going to be they think they would have more time and they think they will make a lot of money.
There you go.
Or one of those.
Freedom and money. Freedom and money. Freedom. Do you know, the more money you make, the more freedom you get. That's a fact. That's my personal experience. I'm sure yours. The more money you make, the more freedom you get. But the freedom to get to the money is really not there initially. You got to sacrifice and be convicted to making the money to earn the freedom. Freedom is not just there initially. I think that's the problem. People think, well, man, I can think I want when I want. Well, I get it, but now you're your own boss. You're the CEO. You're running a company from day one, and you're treating it like a job or a hobby, and it can't be. It just can't be. And I think that's the big differential.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a very, very powerful point, and I'm glad you bring that up. Let me shift gears a little bit and talk about something else that I think you mentioned is very important. If you're going to retain a client and view them not as past clients but are inactive clients, which I think is very good phraseology, for lack of a better word, to use for that. What do you think that so many of them are basically not? Well, let me ask it this way: they really need to become advisors to their clients, and what does that mean in practical terms from a day-to-day basis for a person to be an advisor to their clients as opposed to viewing them as a transaction?
Yeah, I think that what we have these formulas at Massimo we try to preach, and one is, and I've learned this to be very, very true, and I think it was actually taught to me, I forget by whom. Real life will always be greater than real estate. You have to understand that. Real life, greater sign, real estate. And it's very simple. If you're just going to be a broker and talk about cap rates and compression and vacancies and absorption and market trends, okay, you're a commodity. Sorry, you are, right? If you can break down, hey, Joel, I saw you in Bozeman, Montana last week. Incredible, right? Tell me about what you did while you were out there. What were you thinking about? How's the wife? How's that trip to Japan? You get into the real life aspects. You take a different relationship. You
Mhm.
still have to be the authority in the marketplace and be the advisor. You have to know what the hell you're talking about and make sure you're the expert. But you have to bring and then make sure you always infuse real life into your relationship, or you're just a commodity asset that I can find anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of goes back to, people do business with ones they know, like, and trust,
Right.
right? So, and especially I think it's very important in this world that we live in because so often it's easy to just look on the internet and find a name and say, okay, I'm gonna go with this guy. And, it looks like he sold a lot of stuff. So that must be the guy that I'm gonna work with. And let's say for an example, you're trying to climb that mountain. You've got these people that are on top of you because, commercial real estate more than anything else, it's really like a mountain. You have a ton of people at the bottom that are just crabs in a barrel killing each other, right? you got you have a few individuals at the top. So let's say you're trying to break free from that. What are just some behavioral things that they can do in order to climb that mountain? Because it is important to kind of get away in order to scale.
Yeah, glad you said we actually put in a pyramid, Joel, believe it or not. And you're right, the biggest slice down the bottom we call spectators. They're the spectators. They're not going to survive. They're lost. They're not moving forward. Then you get to believers. Believers are capable. They know what they're talking about, but unfortunately, they're still commodities. The
Mhm.
next level becomes the producers. Now I'm producing consistently in commercial real estate. A producer be defined as someone that's consistently producing mid to high six figures. You be a producer in our world. And then get to the authorities, the 7, 8-figure transactor brokers, right? So the difference those 3 levels are really, number 1, conviction. You know, it's shocking me how many people in my industry don't have total conviction to their craft.
Mm.
It's more of a hobby, right? That's just what it is.
Mhm.
Like we said earlier, it's more of an employee mindset.
Yeah.
That's you don't have the conviction, right? It's the study of the craft.
Mhm.
The goat of commercial real estate. For most people know him as Bob Knackel. He's been a client of ours for 13 years. My only client that I coach, of all the clients we coach. He could tell you every single detail to the minutia of what's going on in New York City, and he knows. It's not BS, right? He knows. How well do you know your craft? How well do you know what's going on in the marketplace? I think that's a major element. And then you gotta let people know that you know. I mean, there's a lot of great brokers that are invisible, and you can't be an advisor being invisible. You have to get known. So I think those 3 are really important. Yes, you have to have the discipline and the commitment, all those things you must have. But if you can become the market expert and study your craft and then let the people know what you are, you become an advisor. You do.
Gotcha, gotcha. How do you recommend people get that out into the public so that people can know who they are and what?
Oh, cheese and crackers, Joel, there's so many ways now to get in the public. Or,
Cheese and crackers.
everyone seems that, this is my old coach used to say in college, cheese and crackers, rocket, pass the ball. Like, yeah, whatever. So, but I think look, there's so many ways to get known. In our world, there's the 3, again, we do things corny at Massimo, we do. And we have a thing called the personal pyramid. Again, biggest slice on the bottom, smallest slice on the top. So
Right.
the small slice is personal.
Mhm.
Get out there, get known, have your food and drink opportunity meetings with influence in your market twice a week. That seems to be a number, by the way. We found out if you go on 2 marketing meetings a week, personally, could be a conference, could be one-on-one, you will make more money than those that go on 4 or 5. Joe, why do you think that is?
I don't know. That's well, I guess because you can be more focused and more, prompt to follow up with
Right.
those.
Well, those are going 4 or 5 meetings.
Yeah,
They wanna become famous.
yeah.
I want our clients to become fortune. Right?
Gotcha.
So I don't need the fame.
Right.
And then there's the personal, then it's the physical. Yeah, physical stuff still works, Joe. Send out physical stuff. Behind you is probably several hundred books, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Send a book to your top 100 clients. Let them know you're thinking about them, or not clients, influencers in the marketplace. Okay. And finally, of course, is the digital. Social media is the must. It is. Even video vlogs, video messages, DMs, podcasts. There's so many ways to get known, and because of that, there's so many ways you become invisible by not doing these things.
Yeah, yeah. Good points. Good points. What do you think is the biggest skill gap that people have when they come to you and they're looking for advice? Because it could be that, it could be other things. What would you say is the biggest skill gap?
Yeah, do you follow at all Alex Hormozy?
I don't.
Okay, so Alex Hormozi is this business guru, one of the top rated gurus in the land right now.
Mm.
And he talks about this ignorance tax. And we all have it, right? We all don't know what we don't know. And that's the obvious statement, but people don't realize the costs of the ignorance. So if so let's say right now my company's making, make $8 million a year, right? But
Mhm.
I want to make $10 million a year. Well, that means my cost of not knowing how to get there is $2 million a year. And that's a fact. That's what it cost me by not knowing how to get there. So everyone has an ignorance gap and a tax. And for everyone, it's different. So Joel, for some of our clients, they don't know how to pick up the phone and have a conversation.
Mm.
Some of our clients have no idea how to market on social media, how to build a team, how to pitch to differentiate themselves from the competition. It could be a variety of those things, and usually is a combination, not one. So it depends on each client is different.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, so there's not a common thread per se.
No.
It's just a variety of different things that could be that case. Okay, well that makes sense. How do you advise your clients when they're speaking with sophisticated investors? You know, let's say family offices, institutions, as opposed to smaller clients. Because if you are new to commercial real estate, you're going to naturally be working with smaller clients. You're doing, I don't know, $5 to $10 million purchases and whatnot. But you want to obviously move up to 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million deals. But the buyers of those deals change, and the way you communicate with them change as well. So how do you help people along that path to get better at what they do?
Yeah, every single niche of a client, by the way, most deals in commercial real estate are done at the $2 million mark, by the way.
Okay.
That's the vast majority of deals are done at the $2.5 million mark. And then you get to the double digits, and then eventually you get to the nine-figure deals. But each one of those niches is a different, in our world, we call it avatars, many people do, persona, right? Target market, ideal client persona. So you have to understand everything about the psychographics, the demographics, the challenges, the frustrations, because until you understand those, and by the way, today with AI, it's pretty easy to figure those out. It is. Then you can start creating messaging that resonates with each individual target market. And therefore, you can separate yourself from those just going after cheating. So we have three avatars. We have Ned and Nancy Newby, we have Peter and Patty Plateau, and we have Bob and Betty Topper. I probably shouldn't use Betty Topper, that's probably trademarked. But 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 so we know each niche of our so you would know each niche of your clients.
Mhm.
This is their issues, this is their challenges, this is the messaging, not that messaging. So it all comes down to understanding that well to create messaging that resonates with them.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point, because a professional, skilled investor, just by your questions, will determine what you know and what you don't know in their mind, right?
Yes,
And they'll
absolutely.
size you up immediately and say, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me move on.
100%.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. You have to know that. And then, as you mentioned, kind of building that skill set so that people can view you as an authority as opposed to, other individuals in the marketplace.
Yeah, let me share. There's an author, Anthony Anaroni, who I have the pleasure of getting to know.
Mhm.
Brilliant dude. But he talks about being one up, not in a pompous way, but being one up as far as in a knowledge, authority way versus a commodity perspective. So, for example, if you ever ask the question, back to questions,
Mhm.
hey, Joel, tell me what keeps you up at night. Boom, you're a commodity because
Yeah,
you don't know. You
yeah,
don't know, right? Joe, based on me working with other people just like you, I find they have these three main issues they deal with every single day. One, two, three. Which one do you deal with the most? Oh, you get me. You know me. Okay, it's a much better question framework than the former framework.
right, right. Yeah, no, that makes sense, and you have to be able to know how to articulate that so that it all flows very, very well. We're going to take a quick break here for our sponsor, and then we will come right back.
The Impact Air 99. We asked real people try the Impact Air 99.
Breathable, light, but protective.
Feels very comfortable wearing it. It looks cooler.
It's almost surprising how much air you can get in.
Engineered with 6 layers of nanoscreen technology that blocks over 99% of viruses and bacteria while allowing you to breathe freely and speak clearly.
My glasses are not fogging up.
I could wear this all day.
Quick break to thank our sponsor, Gallatin River Lodge. We stayed with them during our time in Bozeman, and the staff truly took great care of us. The lodge sits right along the Gallatin River, and the location makes it incredibly convenient to get to Big Sky and Yellowstone. If you're looking for a comfortable, high-quality Montana experience, this is a great place to stay. So good to be back with you, Rod, here as we pick up on the second segment here. For all you guys to know, I am recording remotely today. We're happy to have Rod with us. And the first show of the year, I'm at the Gatlin River Lodge in Bozeman, Montana. A fantastic place. You might want to check that out as well and, experience what it's like to be out here in somewhat isolation, but able to really clear your head and get your thoughts together. So great location. Check it out. You'll have a great time and good food as well. So thank you for that. So, Rod, let's dive back into the tough stuff that allows us to pay to go to Gatlin River Lodge. Right. And that's our commercial real estate business. So we certainly appreciate that. Let me ask you this, and I think the answer is pretty simple, but I just want to bring it up because it's something that we always have to keep on our consciousness. You and I both have lived through various market cycles. I won't go back to all of the ones, but let's just go in the last few years. We had the market collapse, which was back in 09, 08, which was very, very dramatic, especially for commercial real estate. We also had the COVID incident, which really affected things as well. A lot of money sat on the sidelines. How do you, work with people to make sure that their businesses are still growing? What mindset should they have during periods of time? Because who knows what's on the next horizon, right? There could be something that pops up later on this year. We just don't know. So how do we prepare ourselves for that now?
Yeah, ironically, I took a COVID test right before this episode today. It was negative, thank goodness. So yeah, so see that you never know what's around the corner. And so what we find is, and look, some of your audience, we could talk about the 90s and the RTC and all things that you and I've been through, right? Oh, people have no idea how bad things could get.
That's right.
I think so, Joel. I think that's one thing. You think it's bad. People think interest rates are high right now, right? But you and I remember interest rates were 17, 18%.
Absolutely.
So
Rates are great.
you got to understand perspective, and you think things are bad, but we'll tell you bad. Joel and I can tell you what's bad. So I think one thing is perspective, Joel. You have to understand that things aren't that bad. Things will always continue to move forward, and they do. I mean, the stock market always moves forward. It has major dips, some that freak us out, some that even challenge our thoughts of ever investing again, but it moves forward. And so does commercial real estate. Values overall continue to climb. Yes, bad years, dip years, but compare them to 10, 15 years ago. Some issues in New York are different now today, but compare them to things have climbed, and they always shall. So that's one thing. Get to understand perspective and mindset. And number two, now you have three choices right now. I see this every time there's a dip. I see this happen again and again and again. First is we call the three P's. One is people will panic. Doesn't panic. And especially in brokerage, Joel, in 2008, during the COVID period, we lost up to 15% of brokers in the US. I'm not going to do 20% in 08. I'm never going to do this again, right? I'm done. I can't survive. Okay. Then you didn't build a business to allow you to have a dip for a year or two. That's what it tells me. So either you panic and you're out. That's fine. That's the, I forget his name now. Jack Welchian theory of let's let the weak go out and we're good. We'll be stronger. And then second is they're petrified. They have no idea what to do. They're stuck. They're just, they don't do anything. They're indecisive. Probably worse than at least panic making decision to get out. Indecision, you're just going to be, you're not going to do anything. That's depreciate. But then there's all what we
just goes backwards, by the way.
Yeah, right. And then the third one is they're proactive. Okay, this is the situation. What do I do? For example, when the pandemic hit, we started a weekly call with all our clients with me, and I was telling them what I was doing, not in real estate, but real life. The PPP and everything else going on. And we still have that call every Monday 5 years later because that was a huge effort. Other brokers went out and created their own databases and knowledge bases and said, okay, now I have time to figure out the market, right? When things are slow, it's a great time to do something strategically that you can step back and say, this will help me 3 or 4 or 5 years from now or beyond. That's when you do these things. And yes, velocity will be down. Yes, commissions will be down. And if you're not an advisor, if you're just a broker commodity, you will get hurt. You will. That's why we press all our clients become authorities and not just commodities.
Yeah. Very, very well stated. One thing I always try to keep in mind and explain to my team is the fact that it's an opportunity to take market share.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, good. They're gone? Good.
Right. Exactly. Because it will come back.
You know, there's a group out of New York called the Siami Group, and again, I'm just very fortunate to know Frank Siami, the leading, I think, the top 3 contractors in the state and of New York, and in the city specifically. And he taught me that whenever there's a down market, that's when you double down on your marketing. That is,
Yeah.
because people are paying attention,
Mm.
and you win more market share.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be tough because, marketing is always looking into that black hole and you're like, I hope I get something out of this.
Right.
But you got to do it, or you could do it different ways,
Right. It was, Lee Iacocca from GM who said, "I know marketing works. I just don't know what the which one works." And I will say this, Joel, we advertise on Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, physical advertising. I asked my marketing team, "Where are we getting all our leads from?" And they'll say, well, Rod, it's a kind of a crazy question." Just give me an answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's the way you got to look at it. It's just a different world, but you got to do it. So
You gotta do
to
it.
your
You
point,
have
yeah.
to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing you mentioned, Lee Iacocca, so he was with Chrysler, and
Right.
Jack Welch was with GM. So,
GM. Yeah,
but I
thank
knew
you.
what you meant.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I remember those. Jack Welch was almost kind of viewed as Jamie Dimon is viewed today with Chase, right? Almost kind of in the same vein, if you think.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's very true. Great analogy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask this. What do you think would be the one non-negotiable discipline that every successful broker should really start developing right now, and why? What would you say is that one thing?
Believe it or not, I'm gonna tell you
Yeah.
it's AI. I'm gonna tell you it's AI.
AI. Okay, okay. Elaborate, please.
Well, where we're going right now, I mean, I'm assuming every broker has not market knowledge, has experience, everything they say they do, their value proposition, right? So, but if you don't understand how to command AI to make it a great accelerant for your client experience and your client results, you will just be left behind. You will become a commodity, no matter how good you are. So, so Joel, you own an investment property and I come to you and you meet with all the big boys and boutique firms and they all say, "Joel, I need 6 months, 12 months exclusive relationship."
Right.
And you're saying, "Great." Joel, I come and you say, "Joel, I need 1 month. I need 1 month to get you the answer you need." Am I likely to get that exclusive relationship? Yeah, because you're gonna roll the dice for
One
one
time, yeah,
month.
for 1 month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And guess what? Oh, Joel, by the way, I meant to tell you, but for that 1 month, instead of charging 3%, 4%, I'm charging you 5 or 6% because time is money.
Yeah.
And Joe, you're likely gonna say yes.
Mhm.
You'll roll the dice for 1 month.
Sure.
That's where AI is today. I could take, and not that my clients can because we built the platforms, but we could take any new exclusive and get you an answer in 7 to 14 days easily.
Mm.
Easily. AI could do all that. So I think that's the difference. And this is for anybody, not just commercial real estate brokers. If you don't command AI today and the impact it's going to have on your clients and your servicing of clients,
Mhm.
we'll be left behind. It's just that simple.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So AI is the one thing that they really need to kind of get nailed down. So
And look, it's not in the great book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. I'm not saying you have to do it, Joel. I'm saying someone on your team needs to have the capacity to get it done.
well, that goes back to our opening conversation, right? Is that $15 an hour work or $1,500 an hour?
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
So yeah, you got to figure out how to get it done without eating up your time. So
Yeah, my AI guy is less than half my age because because he knows what he's doing.
right, right, exactly. No, it makes all the sense in the world. So that is very powerful. So Rod, I'm going to do something I normally don't do. As I mentioned from the beginning, this isn't an infomercial, so we're
No.
not going to do that. But you've had some very very good success in what you do, and it's not part of the script. You didn't know I was going to ask you this, but the fact that you've had growth every single year is very very powerful, and I think our audience needs to know that. So what are some success stories that you might be open to sharing with us? Just kind of off the top of your head. And if you're not prepared, I understand that.
No. We obviously we preach success stories. And by the way, Joe, I want to commend you on something. What you said is so different and so more valuable than what people generally say. People will ask the question, "What case studies do you have?" Right? You said success stories. Just understand the difference.
The
Case
nomenclature.
studies
Yeah.
are so academic. No one wants a case study. But what you said was so true. Success stories.
Mhm.
Yeah, we regularly help our clients multiply, not grow, but multiply their commission income. Could be low of 2x, fine, but 5x, 7x, 10x. We have clients 20x their income. But I think the one thing that people listen to most, I mentioned him, Bob Knackel, who's the GOAT. He sold more buildings in the United States than anyone in history as of today, 2,861, I believe. We first talked, he was in my first book, and I didn't know who he was, believe it or not. And I said, "Who the hell is Bob Knackel?" And so I found out he was making $6 million a year. Joel, I gotta tell you, when he said, "Come talk to me," I said, "What the hell am I gonna do for this guy? He's making $6 million a year." So I flew up, I just sat and watched what he did and didn't do. And I said, Bob, I think you're leaving some money on the table here by not doing this, this, and this." And so he agreed to me coach him. And as I shared earlier, Bob and I have now been working for 13 years in a row. We speak every week. And so in the first 2.5 years, we got him to $12 million. And then in 3.5 years, he had his record high of $18.6 million. So now it's not the magnitude that matters. And no, he's one in a million. A broker makes $18 million.
Yeah.
But it's the growth. And my point of that was, you asked me earlier, what's the differentiation? Everyone, even the greatest broker in the United States and maybe in the world, we work with brokers throughout the world now, even he was ignorant on how to do certain things, right? Everyone has room to grow. Everybody. And as I learned through, I'm going to name drop because this is I did take one thing with Grant Cardone, and Grant Cardone taught me this one thing. There are three intellects, right? There's the ignorant, which we all are. We're all ignorant. And therefore, then you could become either curious, which is what we want, or you become arrogant, right? So you all have a choice. You're all ignorant. I'm ignorant. I don't know how to get to where I need to go. But and ignorance is not a bad thing. It's a fact. People think, "Oh, you're ignorant." No, it's not a negative thing.
No.
But what do you do with that ignorance? Are you curious?
Yeah.
Are you curious or are you arrogant? And if you're arrogant, don't call me. I can't help you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I appreciate what you said also about the fact that don't look at the numbers as to what he's producing from a success standpoint. And I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at it from a percentage standpoint.
Right.
If you look at some of your largest corporations, if they did 3% a year, that's fantastic, right? But here's a guy that's doing 100 multiples of
Right.
growth per year, which is incredible. So which is good to know, because if you're only doing $100,000 a year, if you can get to two, then that's fantastic, right? You're
Right.
doubling your revenue. So yeah, absolutely. So that's very, very impressive. And did I cut you off there? I think you were going to say something else.
No, I think the other factor would be the one, and I'm going back to a question you asked earlier about commonality. Everyone that we work with always made an educated decision, and it was an educated decision
Right.
to invest in themselves. That's such a hard decision, Joel, for so many people,
Yeah.
right? Why would I invest? I mean, now the range could be 2,000, could be 30,000, whatever it's going to be. Why would I invest X? Well, again, why would I invest in a coach? Right now, I just invest in a coach. That coach is a $60,000 investment for the year. But that coach can get me from 8 million to 10 million. Joel, is it worth it?
Let's do the math. Let me see. 10 million? No, it's
Oh, that's the whole thing. It's a return on investment, and is the return on involvement. The more you get involved, the more you commit. Another old saying that I always said, the higher the commitment, the higher the result. I've always found to be true. The more I invest in myself, the more I stay attuned to that program, and therefore I get the better result, right? So that works.
No, good point. I certainly appreciate that. One thing I want to do before we wrap up here is that there's one thing that you mentioned in the beginning, and that was about a broker that's doing working about 2 days a week, but absolutely killing it. And, as some people would say in this day and age, crushing it. The mindset of a lot of people would be, well, I just need to work harder, right? So instead of working, instead of the normal, I don't know, 10 to 12 hours a day, I'm going to work 30 hours a day. It doesn't even exist, right? Just to get there in order to make this happen. So what do you think is the biggest thing people are fooling themselves on? And how do you as a coach start to transition people through that process so that they can do it? We tapped on it a little bit, but I kind of want to end on that note as we kind of wrap this up in a nice bow for people to take away from this conversation.
Well, first of all, they're right. You do need to work hard. You do. To separate yourself from being an authority versus a commodity, you have to work hard. I didn't say work longer hours. That wasn't the point, right? But when you work, let's work on the most highly impactful things to your bottom line. What are they? And yes, if we have to build out a team to do everything else, we build out a team to do everything else, which is fine. Look, I have a team because I couldn't do what I need to do. I should be all I should do is be on podcasts, create content, and oversee some coaching programs. That's all I should do. Everyone else should be done some of this in my company. So working hard is the answer, but working on what that one impact, two impact things is. Brian Tracy, this woman who said that 2 days a week, she quoted Brian Tracy as saying it's called eat the frog, right? You got to eat that frog, which no one wants to eat, obviously. But that's the first thing I do every day. What's the one thing that I don't want to do to get me forward? Move me forward, move me forward. And if you think the busy works to move you forward during $15 an hour work, $10 an hour work, there are people across the world that will do it for 5, 10, 8, $20 an hour that are much better than you. It's just hard.
Yeah, yeah, makes good sense. Absolutely. So very, very good discussion today. I think this was very, very insightful, and the fact that you're getting results. I always think back to there's a movie. Man, what's the name of it? I think it's something like Me, Pam, and Dupree or something like that. Michael Douglas is in it. You might know the one I'm talking about. The guy is just a total goofball his whole life, and then one day he becomes an inspirational speaker. Everybody's like, "Whoa, wow!" It's like, oh, this guy doesn't know anything, right? So it's amazing, and you have a lot of people that are that are like that coming out of Southern California and other places, and it's amazing. But you have been able to produce tangible results, which I think is important. So what would you have us take away from this conversation today that people really need to know if they're wanting to get 2026 off to the right start and make some significant improvement this year?
With the timing of this podcast, if you haven't already sat down, like Joel's doing right now, right, in Bozeman, if you haven't sat down and had a clear segment of time, and you define your own time, it shouldn't be 20 minutes, but it should be, right, to really reflect on where do you want to go, where do you want to go, and how are you getting there, and what are you doing different. If you're not doing things differently, even if you're successful, you got to change it up. You do, but you have to first review and reflect. And from that review and reflection, then you can reposition and refine. That's what you can do and set some goals. I believe 3 goals is what you should set. Set some goals for making this your best year yet. And then you move forward.
Yeah, yeah. Do you normally recommend quarterly goals, or annual goals, or monthly goals?
I love, for me, I walk my office every day and look at 3 goals for the year. I walk in my office every day, look back at my whiteboard and go, those are the 3 goals. If I get these 3 things done, those 3 frogs, I know we'll be successful. If everything else goes to shit, so what? If I get these 3 things done, that's all I got to work. And that tells me what to do every quarter, every month, every week, every day. That's what it tells me.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha. So basically, and this goes back to Gerber as well, right? Working from the backwards. How do they say it? You work from the end forward. Or there's a phraseology.
There's a phrase. You're right. I don't recall, but there's a phrase.
But you know what I mean. We work from the end back, basically.
The end back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how it works.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that makes perfectly good sense. Rod, I certainly appreciate it. One thing that I've even learned from the younger tech guys is looking at the KPIs on deals, and not so much on deals per se, but from the standpoint, and I'm just trying to change my screen around here, from the standpoint of knowing what works and what doesn't work, so that you can make those adjustments, right? And that's one thing that the younger generation has done real well with social media. It's like, all right, I'm spending money here. I'm doing this type of marketing. This doesn't work. I need to tweak this. I need to eliminate that. I need to put more money here. And looking at that helps you out from that standpoint. But that's running a business, right?
So no, first of all, we request that all our clients keep their KPIs so we can watch them. As I run my company, every Monday, every week, our company every week reports on their KPIs. So look, you can either run a business like a hobby, or you can run it with educated decision making based on data. It's up to you.
There you go. There you go. And for those who don't know, who I'll be surprised, what's a KPI?
A key performance indicator.
There you go. Key performance indicator. So you got to know what's working and what's not working. So certainly appreciate that. Well, Rod, any final words as we wrap up?
No, Joel's been fantastic. I appreciate you and the opportunity and your audience for listening. And as we say at Massimo, knowing isn't doing. Joel and I just dropped some knowledge on you. Now you know, but it doesn't matter. You got to go do it.
All right, fantastic. Certainly appreciate that. Everyone, thank you so very much for being here for the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Hopefully you found this discussion very insightful. I have as well, even though I've known a lot of it. It's always great to talk to another professional in the industry and get those insights. And Rod has obviously done a tremendous job in bringing people to the next level in success. And so check him out, find out what he has to say, and you'll learn a lot from him. So Rod, as always, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate you having here. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Have a great day.